Nothing prepares you for F-Zero, created for the new Super Nintendo Entertainment System. You won't believe the power. You won't believe the control. You won't believe the jumps, the curves, or the feeling you get until you experience it for yourself.
Wow, that's fast.
F-Zero from the G-Force, only on the next generation from Nintendo. Now you're racing with power, superpower.
That's great. Anyway, good evening, folks. Hope you had a good work week. Welcome to the Game Preserve. My name is Jacob Newman, and I'm boring these parts. And today we are talking F-Zero, baby. So while I was doing my Halloween content, Nintendo released another batch of F-Zero games for the Nintendo Switch Online service. And as of now, with that release, we now have just about every major release in the F-Zero franchise on the Nintendo Switch, with the exception of F-Zero GX. I mean, come on, Nintendo, it's the best one. But anyway, it's got me in the mood for some F-Zero, and after spending a month playing the Silent Hill 2 remake, which is fantastic, by the way, I was just in the mood to play something fun, easy to pick up and play, so I decided just to, showcase some F-Zero. So this game came out in 1991, I think? It was a launch title for the Super Nintendo, and it was intended to show off Nintendo's new Mode 7 graphics, which was a graphical system that would allow you to rotate and scale sprites in a 3D sense, making it very easy for you to sort of create the illusion of 3D without actually being 3D. To go along with the game, they had the EAD team whip up a racing game, which was going to be themed after F1 racing, but as they were going through production, they realized they couldn't quite get the physics right. It always felt really slippery to the playtesters. So what they decided to do was to just remove the wheels entirely and make it a hovercraft racer. And because it was going much faster than what Formula 1 could, they needed to come up with a title that could, exemplify that. So what would be faster than Formula 1 or F1, the fastest racing in that type of genre? F-Zero. So F-Zero would come out and it would immediately become a big hit on the Super Nintendo. I think it was the second best-selling launch title aside from Super Mario World, of course. And following its release, F-Zero would start seeing a string of releases on different Nintendo consoles. However, the series went dormant in 2004 following the release of the Japan-only F-Zero Climax, and since then, Nintendo hasn't necessarily forgotten about the series, as there are still plenty of references to it at large. Captain Falcon is still one of the fan-favorite characters in Super Smash Bros., and the Blue Falcon has been in Mario Kart for a while, even with a few tracks from F-Zero being included there. But there are still no plans for another F-Zero game, and even Miyamoto has gone on record saying that they'll only do another F-Zero game if they can do something innovative, which I think is really stupid considering there are a bunch of games that just kind of do the same thing over and over again in Nintendo's catalog, yet they refuse to do another F-Zero for some reason. Again, at least give us a remaster of GX, guys. So, because of that, I wanted to start showcasing the series here on the blog to bring more attention to it. So, today we're going to be starting with the original game, and without further ado, let's go ahead and get into that. As to how I'm going to be playing this game, like most SNES games I cover here, I'm going to be playing it via the Nintendo Switch Online service, which is currently the only commercially available way to play F-Zero. Though, if you want to play F-Zero on hardware, copies of the game are very cheap and very common, so you shouldn't have too much of trouble playing it. Alright, let's go ahead and get started. Straight to the title screen, not even any Nintendo logos. I think this is a great title screen. I like the background, though I kind of wish they had colored the logo a different color than the sky. And the logo itself, I'm not a huge fan of it. I prefer the solid look of more modern F-Zero titles, but the graphic design is still just fine. It's perfectly readable. Of course, going straight into the queue up, which is something. So, looking at this right here, you might find it a little strange that there isn't a option for multiplayer, which is one of the big omissions with the original F-Zero. They were still trying to figure out Mode 7 graphics, so they actually don't have a multiplayer option. F-Zero is strictly a single-player game, which is kind of lame for a racing game, but it's still really fun to play as a single-player game, so that isn't much of an issue. It is just something that was worth mentioning. Something else that might throw some people for a loop is you only have 4 vehicles to choose from here, and that's going to be confusing for a lot of people considering that more recent F-Zero games, or the most recent one, which came out almost 20 years ago, they had like upwards of 45 plus characters. So that might disappoint some, but again, this is the first game in the series, and these 4 characters here would become the standard characters that would be released out of the box. And part of the benefit of having such a small roster is that the balancing is really good. So Captain Falcon and the Blue Falcon all around, no strengths but no real weaknesses either. The Golden Fox, Dr. Stewart, very high acceleration, which means you can get off the line really easily, but the handling is really bad. You also regain energy very fast, which is beneficial. The Wild Goose has the best handling and has the toughest body, but it's very slow to pick up energy, so you want to avoid taking damage to begin with. And it also has the second highest top speed. The highest top speed is, of course, the Fire Stingray, Samurai Goro's vehicle. But the problem there is that while it has the high top speed, it doesn't really have the handling or acceleration. So you're going to have to work your way up the line and maintain that speed. I'm going to play through about all these characters, I hope, but I'm going to start with the Blue Falcon, who has always been my favorite to play as. I know there are benefits. Most of the world records for F-Zero use the Fire Stingray, but I just like playing as the Blue Falcon. I just like the look of the ship. Alright, I'm going to start with Night, and I'm going to play on Standard. Mute City, it's classic. Yeah, as you can see, Jon Stewart getting the lead there early. Okay, so the first thing we always talk about with games are the controls. And the controls in F-Zero are interesting for me. I've always described them as tightly loose. Now, with the way the controls are designed, it's very easy to make the subtle adjustments you need in a racing game. But when you go to make a big curve, you can sort of feel the hovercraft sort of sliding to the side. Keep in mind, there's nothing that's attaching you to the ground. But that's also where the skill of F-Zero comes from, knowing how to control the drift in order to negotiate turns, and it only gets harder and harder as the game goes on, as the track design gets more and more intricate. It actually does feel really good, and the sense of speed for the time is fantastic. In addition to just gas and steering, you can also tilt the ship from side to side for a sharper turn, or here, you can make subtle adjustments like that without having to, pivot your ship to one side. If I were to just steer it like I would normally, I would have to change the orientation of my ship slightly. You also have the ability to boost, and it works differently from modern versions of F-Zero. In modern versions of F-Zero, whenever you boost, it takes a percentage of your power meter up there. You guys probably can't see it because of my ugly mug, but you basically have a life bar, and in later games in the series, the boost would take a chunk of that in exchange for a burst of speed. But here, every time you complete a lap, you get 1 boost, and you can have up to 3. So you gotta be a little more strategic with your boost, because you only have so much of them. I gotta admit, I do prefer the risk and reward system of modern games. I just think it works better for the series at large. But it's fine here. And of course, we gotta talk about the graphics here, because they are, what the game was predicated on when it first came out. So how Mode 7 works is you can rotate and scale sprite layers in 3D. So the track and the layer underneath it is one sprite layer, and then you have a background sprite layer, and then your F-Zero machine. And it actually does work really effectively at creating a 3D space. And that was another area where F-Zero was groundbreaking at the time. With most racing games at the time, they tended to be on rails, like you'd hit the gas, and while you would be able to change your position on the track, it wasn't like you could turn the vehicle around or anything like that. In F-Zero, you can do that, which just makes it feel a little more immersive. So, it's often underrated in that regard. And of course, the presentation is great. The idea of a futuristic racing game like this with hovercraft, I think, is really cool. And there's also another aspect to it where there's a lot of personality within the F-Zero GP. You got bounty hunters, you got assassins, veterans, rookies, superheroes, supervillains, all kinds of different characters. And while that doesn't come across too strong in this first game, they do try. In the manual, you do have a comic book to give you more background. But, yeah, F-Zero is just wholly memorable, and they'd only add to that comic book aesthetic with later games in the series, particularly in F-Zero X. It just makes it all the more memorable, in my opinion. Music is also great, too, like the Mute City theme, which I was playing during my intro, in addition to the music that I was playing in the last level. It's an iconic soundtrack, and so is the soundtrack in this level too, Bit Blue. It's like a techno-rock surf music. It's really fun. It's also interesting how they come up with a lot of different levels to give everything a different vibe. Like Bit Blue, for instance, it's a water planet, so the place is completely covered in water. So it has a different atmosphere from Mute City, which is just a cityscape. Yeah, and this blue section right here, you gotta be careful in there because that's like an oil slick for the hover units in here. So if you're not careful, you can find yourself spinning out if you aren't paying attention. One thing that does annoy me about this game is that there's never a point where you're able to just get out in front and focus on your driving. No matter what, there's always going to be a few machines ahead of you that will impede your process, which does sort of add to the challenge, but on higher difficulties, you can realize that you're kind of getting unfairly screwed a lot of the time. Especially if it's a really tight track. It's very hard to get around them, especially since they tend to be jittering side to side due to the nature of the graphics. And now we got Sand Ocean, which is sort of the inverse of Big Blue. Whereas that was a water planet, this is a desert planet, which is also really cool. Different vibe for the music too. Very, really exemplifies what a desolate wasteland this is. You don't want to go in those dark areas either because that slows the machine down. Yeah, you see how the ships are jittering back and forth there. And because of that, the hit detection can be a little wonky too. Sometimes you swear you got around them, but then all of a sudden you'll just be thrown to the side because all of a sudden the hitbox changes positions. I'm starting to think I should have put this on expert mode because it doesn't seem like I'm having too much trouble with it, am I? Then again, I am decent at F-Zero. This is one that I play pretty frequently. So I do have an idea of what I'm doing versus, you know, something like Five Nights at Freddy's 2. I'm surprised that video did as well as it did. That's almost up to 100 views, I think. Something else that is of note, unlike a lot of racing games where if you're in a Grand Prix, you get points depending on how you place. Here, you don't really have that. It counts as a win for you if you just make it to the end of the Grand Prix. But the catch is that as you're going through your 5 laps, you need to be above a certain position in order to continue. So you see over there on the left-hand corner where it says rank 1 and then it says 7 safe, and then it just drops down to 5. That means I need to be in 5th place or better, otherwise I'm going to be taken out of the race. It's probably some arcade mentality that's at play there. I don't really think it's necessary. I think the point system is better, and that would also be better because then you probably wouldn't have to have these stupid guys in the way, making it hard for me to get around. You also want to watch out for those flashing ones because those guys will explode if you run into them, which will take out a big chunk of your power meter. And if your power meter hits 0, your vehicle explodes, and, well, that's game over too. You do have lives, so that's also an interesting component of the game too, because as you're shooting down the racetrack at high speeds, barely maintaining control of your vehicle, getting thrown around by the other racers, bouncing off the walls and everything, seeing that power meter slowly go down, it makes you tense up. You grip the control tighter. It makes you feel like you're coming apart as you're shooting down the track at high speeds. It's such a great feeling. Ah, death win. Gotta hate this track. So essentially, like, you look at the track down there, it doesn't seem like it'd be too difficult, but the trick with this one is that there's a wind blowing against you that'll throw you off course, so you kind of have to compensate with that while also being able to hit the boost plates as well. It's definitely difficult, especially in Death Wind 2, where there's a section of the track with some really tight hairpin turns. Death Wind. That's essentially what we call my dad whenever he had too many beans or deviled eggs in my day. I also feel like running into other ships is a little unbalanced because when you hit them, they seem to be just fine. But when you hit them, you seem to fly all over the place. It just doesn't feel like there's an even exchange of paint trading there. Go! It's especially bad when you're going into a curve and someone decides to bump into you from behind. Ah! Your mother. One more lap. I'm doing really well, so I got an extra man there. Again, definitely played into that arcade sensibility. Again, I find the scoring system to be a little silly considering, well, it's a racing game. The score should be how you place. Ah. Not doing too bad, I'd say. Ah, silence. I like the story behind Silence. Apparently, the reason it's called that is because there isn't a single living creature on the planet that calls it home. So, yeah, imagine how eerie that would be. Then you come... It would make it good for F-Zero racing, though. Lots of empty space. A lot of hairpin turns here, which are really tricky to negotiate with the slippery handling. My method is to use the lean function and also to let off the gas. It seems to give me some decent results. Urgh. Out of my way, Goro. Urgh. Too tight. I'm low on power. So yeah, that glowing section, that's a pit lane. You go in there and you'll get back some health, which is very useful. You do want to be careful when you go airborne like that, though, because if you fly outside the confines of the track, then it's the equivalent of your machine blowing up, so you really don't want that to happen. In later games, they would say that F-Zero tracks are suspended miles in the air. So that, like, when you really think about it, F-Zero really is something of a death race. I think I even included it in my top 10 Squid games. Ah. See, moments like that are really annoying. It's hard to tell where they're gonna go with the graphics. With their jittering around like that, especially when the angle changes. Let's see if I can get around Goro here before the checker flag. Oh, crap. That might have been a mistake. Yeah, it was a mistake. Well, now you guys get to see what happens when my power level runs dry. I never said I was perfect. Let's try this again. Like, the tracks might not look that simple due to how flat they are, but it really is a challenge to get around some of these curves. With these tight angled ones, you really want to hit those A-pads. That's the line between going into a curve and then going into the start of another one. Not a big fan of the music in this level. It isn't fast-paced enough for me. Definitely prefer the silence music from F-Zero X. Very lively. Ah! Gonna use that boost, see if I can stay ahead of the pack. I really don't like that it's 5 laps instead of 3, though. I'm so used to it being 3 laps, so I often think I'm on the last lap, only to find that I still got 2 more to go. It's nice that you have a little indicator telling you when someone is coming up behind you, though. Gives you a chance to either get out of the way or try to block them. Though I wouldn't recommend trying to block them unless you're, crap. No! I hate it when crap like that happens. Bad place to start trading paint with someone. Get back here, Doc. It's funny to think that with F-Zero, one of the images you always see is Captain Falcon and Samurai Goro fighting for the lead, but in my experience playing the original F-Zero, it's more often you'd be fighting for the lead with Dr. Stewart. Because he has the highest acceleration, he's usually the first off the line, so unless you knock him aside, he's typically going to be in the lead. Get out of my way. I didn't mean to hit that boost. I got another man, that's good. I missed the ramp. Now someone's gonna pass me. There's Pico. Now I'm going to use the boost. Nice straightaway. Ah, come on! How did that even happen? You see, now I'm in danger of being taken out of the race. So I gotta put the hammer down. Alright, you little... out of my way. There we go. That's the end of the Grand Prix. It's funny trying to see the 360 angles that they have of all the F-Zero machines. Mostly because they only have 8 angles that they drew the ship from. That's something that Miyamoto commented on when he was talking about 3D graphics and what a big benefit they were for racing games. You only have to render one sprite and then you don't have to do it again. Yet for whatever reason they decided to use pre-rendered character sprites for Mario Kart 64. Wrap your head around that one. So I think I did pretty well with that. This was natural F1 race. I think I still would have won the cup. Was mostly in first place, and the only time I didn't, I was in third, so I was still doing pretty well, all things considered. A lot of people don't realize that you don't necessarily have to come in first place in every race. It's more how well you did overall. For every place that you get a certain amount of points. So like when you're in first place, you get like 15 points, for example. In second place, like 12 or something like that. I don't really know the exact numbers. I'm not a big fan of F1 racing, honestly. More of a IndyCar, sprint car guy myself. Do love a good drag race, though. Okay, now we're going to play as Dr. Stewart in the Golden Fox. We're going to do the Queen Cup. Do it on standard. So again, I got high acceleration with this vehicle, but the cost there is that the handling is very loose. So I go to make a turn, and odds are I'm going to slide to the side a little bit more. Like you can see, like the turning is a little looser. And the boost isn't very good either on the Golden Fox, so the benefit here is that you're able to get an early lead, but people will eventually catch up to you, so you want to be mindful. I remember, like, how I first played F-Zero back in the day was at the athletic club me and my brothers would hang out with when we were kids. They had a Super Nintendo in the big kids area, and one of the games they had was, of course, F-Zero. And I remember everyone saying that Dr. Stewart had the best vehicle, and they always said, oh, it's the green one that's good. But they said it was green because the TV that we played on was screwed up, so the color was different. I think the Wild Goose was actually blue there, or at least a different kind of blue than the Blue Falcon. Then we get F-Zero GX, and my little brother, he has the vaguest memory of playing F-Zero at the athletic club. And he remembers the green one being the best, so he picks the Wild Goose, and he has a hard time controlling it. Good times, good times. Yeah, I still remember how I came across F-Zero X as well. I couldn't read at all when I was a kid. So, like, as we were going through the grocery store, I spotted the same logo from the athletic club on one of the boxes. I was actually able to identify it as F-Zero. And just seeing a 2D game in 3D was also really cool. And F-Zero X is also a really good racing game. That's another one I'm excited to revisit. But it's going to be a while before we get to that one. The ones that they released recently are F-Zero GP Legend and F-Zero Climax, which are the two games based on the anime that they made back in the day. And I don't think a lot of people in America are actually aware of the anime. I think GP Legend was actually more, the game itself was more well known than the show. And that's because GP Legend, its release in America, was handled by 4Kids Entertainment. And they, of course, mishandled it, outside of the fact that the dub was poorly done and horribly edited. It also didn't help that they barely showed it. Only 15 episodes aired before it was canceled completely, and not too long after that, 4Kids started to file for bankruptcy. Man. I remember seeing previews for that show and being so excited, and like, they just had a chance there, but they didn't do anything with it. Actually, like, there were only 15 episodes of the English dub produced, but there were over 40 episodes of the original series in Japan. I actually have been watching the original anime series, you know, with the Japanese dub, because I have no choice. It's actually a lot better than you would imagine. I think more people should give it a chance. But it's just such an obscure part of Nintendo's history that I don't think there's ever going to be like another dub of it. But yeah, GP Legend and Climax are pretty cool games, though I wouldn't say they're quite as good as this one here. Neither is F-Zero Maximum Velocity on GPA, which a lot of people view as the black sheep of the series because that one introduces a new cast of characters as opposed to any of the fan favorites. So it doesn't even have Captain Falcon, Dr. Stewart, Goro, or Pico in it. I think if they ever make another F-Zero game, though, it would be cool to include some of those characters in there just to expand the roster a little bit more. And then, of course, you have F-Zero GX, which is widely regarded as one of the best racing games of all time, and one of the best games Nintendo has ever produced, but it was unfortunately a bomb at retail when it came out, so copies of it are very rare and expensive. Because of that, I refused to sell my copy of the game. Got thrown against the walls again, and that's bad because while Dr. Stewart's ship does regain health really quickly, it's also a very fragile machine too. There's a reason I prefer the Blue Falcon. I do like the music in this level though, Port Town. It's actually a town where Captain Falcon is from too. I got another man, so I made up for the ship being lost. Or is that me breaking the lap record? I don't know. Really hate those things along the side of the road. They're magnetized, so it pulls the ship towards them. Like, every time I play this, I'm always blown away by the sense of speed here. It really does feel like you are going exceptionally fast. Out my way, Falcon. When you go to jump, there's also some control to that as well. If you hit the jump and you're holding back on the D-pad, you'll actually jump higher. But you also got to be sure that you're holding back on the D-pad when you land too, otherwise your ship is going to bounce and impact with the ground a little bit, and that'll slow you down. There's one level in particular where you gotta get used to that, otherwise you're not going to make the jump and you're going to get kicked out of the race sooner rather than later. Ow! Ah. You see how much damage that did? No. What am I saying? You guys can't see that with my ugly mug blocking this. I should have thought about that before I started the recording. Oh, MLG Panda's certainly going to have a few things to say about that. Red Canyon. If I'm not mistaken, this is where Samurai Goro operates out of. Evidently, it's supposed to be a really dangerous venue for F-Zero machines, mostly because the area is home to a lot of smugglers and space pirates and the like. Do like the music though. Best version of this song though, hands down, is from F-Zero GX. F-Zero in general just has really good music. A couple of friends of mine in college actually used the Mute City theme as their ringtone for me, which I was always flattered by. Another detail I really like about this game compared to later games in the series is the fact that when you go to turn, you can actually see, you know, air flaps and everything engaging to make the vehicle steer. Kind of like on an airplane, you steer the plane in the air through the use of aerodynamics. It's just a nice one-to-one feel that everything you do on the D-pad is actually corresponding to what's happening on the screen, which is good. It's a good substitute for not seeing your wheels turn to the side, for instance. Something that was lost on later games, primarily because in F-Zero X, they had to make the graphics as simple as possible in order to get the game to run at 60 FPS. So, when F-Zero GX came out, they opted not to put that stuff back in, which is a shame, because I think it would have been cool to see how all the different vehicles change their direction, how they steer. Ah. White land. A lot of that oil slick area I was telling you guys about from Bib Blue makes this level a lot harder than it needs to be. Especially this section right here. Save the boost for that so you can just rocket through, not risk being thrown out of the track on account of the jumps. Ugh. Man, I got screwed there. Thanks a lot, Falcon. Like, even when you wipe out like that, it's still a blast. Try this again. Easy does it. Need to remember to go through the pit lanes. Keep forgetting to do that. Darn it, Falcon. Ha. When you hit the walls, you don't necessarily immediately bounce off it, like those blue balls you see lined up along the track. If you're brushing up against those, you're still taking damage, and it's only if you go any deeper than that you bounce off them. But that stuff also slows you down, so you really don't want to be brushing up against the walls. Really don't want to be doing it in general because you want to keep your health up. Urgh. Screwed over by that guy again. Ah! Okay, that was my fault. Stay on target. Stay on target. Ugh. Out of my way, Falcon. Ugh. Like, I wish you guys could see how tightly I'm clutching the controls. I really need to get a camera to film my hands while I play this game, play games. Feel that'd be good reference while I'm talking about the controls. Another white land, joy, and I think this is the one level I was talking about. The one with the long jump. Another risk cutting through the balls there, but I think it's worth it to get through the corners quicker. And then we have the dreaded jump. Ugh. Be sure you hold back on the D-pad when you do that one, otherwise you're not going to make the jump. Ah. Oh. Yeah, that was stupid on my part. I don't know why I hit the boost there. I do want to save the boost for that jump though, because if one of the idiots in front of me puts me in a bad spot when I get to that turn, I can at least get a boost of speed and make the jump. Doing pretty well, though. Maybe I spoke too soon. Something bad's probably going to happen now. I just know it. Oh, no. Oh, that was close. Why am I going all out? It's not the last lap. Ugh. I always lose track of what lap I'm on in this game. There you go. Pretty sure that's the end of the track. The cup too. Where are we at on time? I think I got time for one more cup, and I think I'm going to try to do this next one on Expert. I really wish there was a way to skip through this part, though. Come on now. Alright, one more. I've completed these two on Esper. Let's see if I can finally get King Cup out of the way. Yeah, supposedly the story with Mute City is that it used to be New York City, but when aliens started coming to Earth, it just expanded, and now it's known as Mutant City because of all the different species of aliens that live there. Though most people obviously shorten it to Mute City, which has a nice ring to it. Not doing too well, am I? Yeah, you see how slowly the Wild Goose picks up energy? It's got the tightest handling, though, which has its benefits, and the second to highest top speed is nice. But I still prefer the well-roundedness of the Blue Falcon. Yeah, with this track, I like to save my boost so I can cut through a gap in the minefield as opposed to trying to stay in a sweet spot. I think Dr. Stewart just ran right through that guy. Sometimes the computer players will bump into the random racers and they'll fly backwards, which you gotta watch out for because if they hit you, you're gonna send them forward while you go back. Thankfully, I'm not having an issue with right now. Still one more lap though, and I can still screw this up. bad place for those guys to show up. First place victory for me on that spur, but it's very easy to get first place in Mute City, so not a big deal. It's a really big deal to get it here, though. Gotta hate that wind. Ah! Really gotta hit those booster plates if you want to stay ahead. Kind of wish instead of the wind, there would just be more booster plates. Feel like that would make for a better challenge. Just trying to make that turn while going to high speeds. Ah, too soon. Ah, it's too soon on that too. Look at how crowded this is. It's ridiculous. Arrgh, still ran into that thing. Ugh. I need to get up to third place. That is what you need to move on. I can live without a podium finish, but I do not want to be in fourth place, otherwise I don't move on to the next race. Urgh. One more lap. Focus. Darn it, Falcon! Oh! Darn it, Falcon, you killed us both! In the pit area, for crying out loud! Ah! Just want to get through this one race. Ah. Why did I hit the boost there? Why would I do that? On my way, Stuart. I wonder if Dr. Stewart's any relation to Tony Stewart. Ah! Ah! He just went right through that guy. Come on. Out of my way. Almost there. One more lap. I'm in a good position. Damn it, Goro. Out of my way. No, 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 no. Yes. Ha! Port down 2. I basically run out of things to say at this point. I'm really just trying to focus on the game because I still haven't beaten this cup on Expert. Ah! Darn it, Falcon. Looked like Falcon and Goro were having a little duel there, but it looks like Falcon lost for a change. Evidently, Goro has scored some victories over Falcon in certain races, but Falcon still holds the overwhelming majority of them. I think Goro's only won 10 races, and I think Captain Falco's run 234. Ah, darn it, Falcon. Out of my way. Stay back there, Falcon. Ah. Ugh. I swear I was clear of that guy. I know I need to stay in third place. Try my best. Falcon! We're almost done with the hours, but I think I'm going to go a little longer, see if I can't finish this cup. Boy. Watch it, Stuart! Ugh. Go! Bounced off the wall, hit the ramp, ended up in the dirt. Ugh! Darn it, Goro. I know we're on your home turf. That doesn't mean you can just send me to the side. Gotta try something. Oh, yeah! Darn it, Falcon! I landed right on that thing. Come on. One more lap and I'm in first place. Oh, too soon. First place victory. One more track. I think. Oh no, Firefield. This is gonna be fun. Ah, Goro. Ah! Darn it, Goro. Come on. I almost forgot I was on camera there for a second. Ah! I'm probably not going to win this race, which means, you know, once I crap out of here, I'm going to call it for the night. Ah! Can I even make it to the... Can I even make it to the finish line? Evidently not. It's definitely an F-Zero game. It is hard! Alright, so that's going to do it for tonight, guys. Anyway, F-Zero. For a game that was primarily made to show off a new graphics technology, it has held up superbly. The controls are super satisfying. It's a lot of fun to master them. The sense of speed is fantastic, and it is also a genuine challenge most of the time. Though I definitely would say I prefer later games in the series, F-Zero on the SNES is still worth your time. So if you have a Nintendo Switch online subscription, be sure you put some time into it. It's a great piece in Nintendo's history. But anyway, that's going to do it for tonight, guys. If you enjoyed tonight's content, please be sure to like and subscribe. I do these videos every Saturday, typically at 8. If I try to go live when I can, but if I can't, I will always leave something recorded for you guys like I did here. If there's a game that you would like me to play, what I do is I play a game for an hour and just talk about the game design. I do not play games from start to finish because I feel you lose something if you're not playing the game yourself. So I play the game for an hour and just talk about the design. If there's any game that you would like me to cover in that format, please be sure to leave it in the comments, and if I think it's worth checking out, I'll take a look at it. Anyway, that's going to do it for tonight, guys. Hope you all have a good work week, and take care.